thank you for having me here, Amandeep, and it's such a pleasure to always have a conversation with you. I'm Aishwarya, and I'm the co-founder of Rebalance. We specifically work in India to see more women, both as founders and funders. We started Rebalance in 2019 with this simple mission: how do we see more women raise and deploy capital? Rebalance essentially is an accelerator program that focuses on female founders. We've hosted about 200 plus founders since 2019 and moved over $50 million in capital since then. The other side of what we do is, of course, like I mentioned, women deploying capital. And that piece is very close to my heart because I think there's not enough women who are investing today in this asset class. So we're India's first angel community that is 60% women. And so far, we've backed over 30 companies, of which about 75% of them are women.
So you're also our first ever international guest. So this is episode 320 something. So it's like a landmark one as well. And for the people watching back home, you're also the first one with a live audience. So you've got two firsts out of 300 episodes. So thank you for doing that. So obviously when you started this out, right? So starting out an accelerator and give people the context as well. So a lot of the listeners are going to be from the UK. What is it like at the moment in terms of diversity with startups in India? And what's the funding amounts? Because here we always hear 2% of funding goes to female founded startups in Europe. What's that like in India and what kind of inspired that mission?
Absolutely. I think in India, for every 100 rupees that is deployed, 4 goes to women. So it's not any better. I think it's a global conversation. And I think the conversations become better, but the capital is not. I think that's overall in the entire world. So I think in India, it's still the same. A lot has changed, though, since we started. When we started this, there were not a lot of women starting up in industries that we see them start up in now. When it comes to material sciences or within defense or aerospace, these are some of the companies and sectors that we've looked at and backed women in. So since 2019 to now, we've seen a 233% increase in applications for the cohort, which is a great first primary data that we can actually share. And a lot of women are also, like I said, starting in very diverse sectors. So apart from just healthcare, or a lot of women starting up in sciences, they're also looking at hardware and manufacturing and all of these spaces. So I think from a diversity point of view, we're specifically called Rebalance as well, because we want to be inclusive of not just women, but everybody else who wants to participate in this ecosystem. So we also have folks from the LGBTQI community that is part of the angel community and also as part of the portfolio. So, yeah.
And you said about like attitudes have shifted a bit where the conversation has changed, even the capital hasn't.
Yeah.
When you're initially setting this up, how are you getting people involved and getting the word out there to try and get female founders to get on your programs?
The way we approach the program is actually from a very different approach. It's focused more on access than it is focused on mentorship. And I think I've said this on multiple occasions that women are over-mentored and underfunded. Sometimes all they actually require is just access and the money, and they know what to do with it. So I think we don't try to mentor companies, but we try to create serendipity for them to meet the right people. And that has worked really well. So, of course, past program experience of founders and those referrals have helped reach more and more people. A lot of word of mouth has been part of our marketing, I would say, strategy for the program. So we, of course, do reach out to some companies that we think are really cool in India ourselves. But we have seen growth in word of mouth as one of the best ways to build the pipeline. That's one. And second, I think when founders are saying good things about you, you automatically have a larger, wider community of folks who want to join the mission, even as mentors or even as folks who want to invest. So I think it has been a flywheel that got created just because we were doing our work really honestly. And I think that is what's helped propel this to the 10th cohort now, which we've just concluded, and maybe about over 120 angel investors who invest with us. So, yeah.
And it was your demo day, was it last weekend? It's pretty recently, right?
Last weekend, yes.
And like, how do you feel like the program has changed over the years? Like, how have you made it better and how have you made it, obviously, the access increase?
I think accelerator programs are, I'm talking from an India perspective right now, are misunderstood very widely because a lot of the initial wave of incubators and accelerators that came into India, and I'm talking post 2014, I started Rebalance in 2019, but we started the work, Vikas and I, who's my co-founder, in 2017. And around that time, there were very few accelerators and incubators in India that were doing meaningful work. I think a big way to change how you're looking at the space is to also understand what you're trying to do. If your KPI is how many companies went through the program, oh, and I've worked with X number of founders, that doesn't tell you anything. But what amount of capital have you moved? And one of the biggest KPIs that we look at and this has been a learning through running these batches, is how much time can we save for a founder? And a lot of people don't talk about that because that is where a lot of the time goes in cold emailing, reaching out to the right people, hits and misses, things that we can just get out of the way when we are guiding you through the program. So I think this has been one of the biggest learnings for us, that the more one-to-one time we've spent with them has helped them actually do better in the 0 to 1 journey. Since we put the first check and we're looking at pre-seed and seed startups, the initial direction is really important for you. Otherwise, raising capital doesn't really do much if there's no direction to where you want to go. So I think the program, all in all, for us is very hands-on. And second, we focus a lot on how we can actually help the founders save their time, which is, I think, more valuable than money. And the third thing that we've also learned across programs is that nobody wants to sit in the classroom, right? A lot of accelerators focus on, we'll call like a speaker and then we'll have like some 1 hour long conversation monologue. That does not really help because you can actually do that on YouTube now. And the idea is to build those relationships for each founder that comes into the cohort. And that's really worked well for us.
So we've just done our first accelerator as well, right? So the demo day is next week, which you're coming to. And it's one of the things that we tried to pick up on too, right? So I can probably admit this, right? I looked at your program. I was looking at all these different programs across the world and trying to take the best bits of each.
Yes.
And we had the same idea about there's so many workshops that are just kind of useless. And it's better to get like, we have the hour-long sessions, but it's just Q&A.
Yeah.
So then you get to pick the brains of somebody like a lot further ahead than you. And in that period as well, so in the accelerator, because I know now you've grown up the team and it's like really, so I think when did I first meet you? Was it 3 years ago now? 2 years ago?
2023, yes, 3 years ago.
Yeah. And then like in the last few years, you've grown so rapidly, right? You've got, the team's got stronger, you've got more people involved, you've got the Angel Syndicate and things too.
Yes.
And what was kind of the turning point there? Because I know it was so hard for so long at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then you were able to now just really expand really quickly in the last couple of years.
I think the biggest mistake that we made in hindsight is not growing the team early enough. We tried to, but I think we got so busy with the ops of doing this, because running an accelerator is really ops heavy and very manual, right? And then you have the angel community through which we invest is also ops heavy and very manual. So Vikas and I were doing the work of like 10 people each up until last year. And I think the best decision we made last year was to get the team going in terms of, now we're about 4 people in the team, of course, but that really has helped us access a lot more opportunities to scale that we weren't able to do earlier. But I think you always have the right time to do things. And a lot of things just like fell into place. 2024, we saw some exits. We also looked at, we increased the frequency with which we were investing because the angel community also grew. So I think when the community in India started seeing the kind of deal flow that we were bringing, I think a big chunk of investors in the space, like when you look at VCs or you look at folks that are even in PE, they talk a lot in AUM, that, you know, oh, this is where I work, this is my fund, and I do 1 billion AUM. Great. But at the end of the day, what is your deal flow like? Because the deal flow actually supersedes the AUM, right? You could have 100, 200 billion to deploy, but if you don't have good deal flow, it doesn't matter. So I think we wanted to get that right. And that inflection point was sometime around 2023, 2024. And when we started seeing those investments do well, you also get very happy about seeing the bets that you've taken do well. So it brings confidence within the community. And so that, again, that flywheel goes and people come in and want to join the angel network. So when the angels grow, frequency of deal grows. Now we've done about 14 deals last year. And this year, probably more, right? And the portfolio growth also attracts more founders, right? So you know where I'm going with this, right? So that entire flywheel just kind of fell into place, I think, last year. And now we're just looking at growing our portfolio at least by 20 to 25 companies more.
So obviously there's parallels between what we do and what you do, right?
Yeah.
So there's like bits where you're a few years ahead, so I'm learning from what you're doing there. And what made you go for kind of the angel syndicate side of things rather than maybe the VC side of things? Like what made you go down angel syndicate first rather than VC, and what's the kind of plans around that?
We were actually really intentional about being an angel community, although I think a lot of things that happened for me, because I started this when I was 23, right? And there was a lot I was also learning while I was building this. But while the angel community happened organically, when one of the mentors from because cohort 1 was a very special cohort for us, and there were a lot of mentors who were close to us. He said that, guys, even for your first batch, this is really incredible deal flow, and like I would like to put a check in one of the companies. And then we started thinking, we were like, okay, if we want to put checks, why don't we start with the angel community? But we decided to remain an angel community even in our 7th year this year because of one really important thing. As a fund manager or a first-time fund manager, you would go to the same institutions and same LPs to raise capital. What impact are you actually creating in terms of diversity on that layer? So if I'm going to them and I'm speaking to somebody that I want to raise capital from, there are not a lot of women there either, right? So we wanted to ensure that if we are looking to grow diversity within the venture capital space or this asset class, how do we see more women enter the space? And you got to start them as angels, right? So we now have focused on, like I said, we're 60% women angels. That can now convert into women becoming LPs. Now, a big chunk of a lot of women who invest with us are also coming from family offices. They had never invested before, right? There was no lack of capital. There was no lack of access. They just did not look at this asset class or think that they were confident enough to actually go and deploy checks. So the angel community is really the hardest and slowest way to do this, but it's the most rewarding because we've actually been able to make far faster first checks than a lot of funds do. And I think we like to call ourselves the early believers and all of the angels along with us. So to actually put that into play was really important for us. And now as it grows, we can, of course, also look at the fund.
And with those conversations, the female angels, right? And if they're doing it for the first time, how does that conversation go? Is it quite a simple thing to be like, we're doing this, do you want to back us and become an angel? Or do you need to convince them? And what's the kind of worries and concerns they might have that you're then able to convince them to invest?
What has really worked for us is that we started with a really great base of about 30 to 40 angels, and they recommended a lot of folks. Now, like I said, when people look at the deal flow, they also feel like, I would like to know more about investing in this particular sector. And every angel who reaches out to us has a very different take on why they want to invest, right? There are angels who, maybe the first set would be angels who are doing it, I want to give back to the community. This could be Indian diaspora outside of India, by the way. It could be folks within India who are now retired. It could be C-suite. Folks that are working at large MNCs are saying that, okay, I would like to give back to the community. And I've made all my investments in other asset classes, so I would like to invest here. The second set of angels would be folks that are looking at pure returns. They're the toughest, obviously, because they are also retail investors, and they look at it from a perspective of, tell me what you're going to get for my $1 or my $2. And the conversation is very different with them. The third set of angels are the ones who actually want to back particular sectors. So they're really intentional. And they're saying, listen, my background is in energy, or my background is in science. I would like to look at companies in this space because I'm passionate about the space. So all of the angels that are part of the network they usually have a conversation with me before they join. And these are very common questions that come by. In terms of what kind of sectors are you investing in? What's the minimum check size? You'd be surprised how many people actually don't know that a minimum check size can be as small as £4,000. They do not know that. And then the third one is, of course, exits. It's the biggest question that everybody has. But for us, I think we've figured out how to navigate all three types of angel investors, and are serving all three of them pretty interestingly and decently in the community. So for us, I think this is how we kind of look at most of our base of investors who come to us. And so far, it's not been as challenging, but I think the most challenging has been to get women to put their first check. I've spent, after onboarding them, I've spent at least 2 hours in walking them through how angel investing works and how do you evaluate deals, right? So one thing that has worked for us to get and navigate that challenge is just encouraging women to access deal flow. If you don't want to invest, don't invest. Join the community, attend the pitch call, see what's happening in the ecosystem, and then if you want to put a check, you do. And without, I think, fail, every single one of them has invested in the first deal or the second deal that they've looked at. So yeah, I think that's how I would put it.
Hello, hello. I hope you're enjoying the show so far. I'm Amardeep Parmar, co-founder of BayHQ and the host of this show. For those of you who don't know, BayHQ is the community for high growth Asian heritage founders and investors in the UK. Over 7,500 people have attended our events, 200 people have been through our impact programs, and obviously there's been over 250 episodes of this podcast. If you want to join us and take part in the programs and come to the events, go to bayhq.com/join. We also just released our first ever book called Startups for Outsiders, which you can get on Amazon now, and the link is in the bio. Hope to see you soon at our event. Hope you enjoy the rest of the episode. So when there's like new angel investors, right? How is it different when somebody's maybe pitching somebody who's never invested before? So if there's a founder now who's like got somebody who's interested in the company, but they're pitching an investor who's a bit scared about doing the first check, how would you go about that, or how would you coach a founder who's in that situation?
I think the way we kind of do this is because we invest as a group, so the founders usually don't know they're putting the first check, right? So for the investor, I can answer it better, but for founders, how we usually prepare them is to talk to any VC the same way. I think for most angel investors who are looking at first checks are really highly indexing the team, right? And that's usually how we recommend them to also invest. The team is usually 60 to 65% of your decision for pre-seed. What does the founder really have to actually show at pre-seed and seed, right? Even if you have revenue, it'll be early revenue, or if maybe you have an MVP, but the biggest bet that you're making is actually on the person. So how do you really evaluate founders when they're pitching to you is one piece that I do with the angels. For the founders, I think it's common advice because they will be pitching to a group of investors, right, with us. And the first filter for them is also to pitch to us. And so how we actually coach the founders to do this is really focus very, very sharply on why you're the best team to do this. And the second piece would be, where do you really want to take the company with the capital that you're raising? I think having clarity of where you want to take the company in the next 12 months is more than enough. Every founder learns when they enter the market. Things change, you can also pivot. But if you're able to learn fast, you can actually, look at creating a plan for the investor that you're pitching to give them comfort that I've thought about every single piece of how this could also go wrong and this could go right, and the ideal cases, this scenario. So I think having the clarity and being really articulate about how you want to approach the next 12 months is good enough for you to pitch to an angel investor.
So it's a classic case of lots of underrepresented founders where they don't brag enough, right?
Yeah.
So as we know, it's all about the team, but then they'll skim over the team slide, or they'll be like, oh yeah, I did this for a couple of years, and then carry on, right? Because they're uncomfortable talking about themselves and what they've achieved.
Yeah.
And obviously you've coached so many founders through pitches. What do you try and get them to bring out there? Like, what are some of the traits you think that's really important for people to showcase, or how can they make sure they present themselves in the right way?
I think the way, and these are things that I've looked at since batch 1 to now, and every founder that we've worked with, of course, because the program focuses on female founders, and I'm going to try to focus on that piece, right? I think the one thing that women do not do really well is make quick decisions. And sometimes when you take too long to make a decision, it can also cost you capital and it can also cost you time. This is both from women who are investing and women who are raising when it comes to capital. And we've seen that very, very differently in men who are pitching. They'll set out audacious, large goals. They will also be very open about, where they could go wrong. We like to be really detailed as women, we also like to be prepared. And so sometimes it just takes longer for us to get out there and just put ourselves out there and say that, listen, this is what I'm doing. And I might not have all the answers right now, but I know that this is what I want to do. So having that conviction in yourself and being okay to be vulnerable and going out there with a half-baked pitch deck, which women usually don't do, but I've seen a lot of other folks do it, is one piece that we have at least observed across all of the cohorts, that they really like to be prepared. And I think sometimes it slows you down. But I think a big part of that becomes really important when you're looking at financial projections. So the projections might be realistic, but they might not actually display the ambition that you really want to display, right? I think the best way we usually ask them to navigate this piece is we actually just push them. I sit on their head and I'm just like, you have to post this, or you have to, because the reason why we do small batches is that we do 15 companies or less per batch in the accelerator. Our average has actually been about 10 to 11. Right. And when you're working with such a close-knit group, you can actually coach them and work with them on areas that they have not yet thought about. So I think one piece would be that, which is how to think big, or rather how to actually showcase that you're thinking big. And the second would be just having done really good research about your competitors. I think a big gap that exists, and this is in general, I don't think it's to do with folks that are underrepresented or not, is that sometimes we tend to think that researching competition is not as important because maybe we think we're the only ones doing it. But I think there are very few original ideas in the world, and there's always someone doing it elsewhere. So I think having a really clear understanding of how many people have attempted this in the past and not done well, what is the current landscape like, can help you position your product better. So I think the positioning is a big part of the narrative and then a big part of the pitch, right? And so that is one piece that I've worked a lot with our founders, which has actually helped them raise capital because they were positioning themselves against the wrong competitive landscape or the umbrella that they were looking at. The investors may have had past investments that didn't do well in those sectors. So sometimes the reason why investors also say no is this, which is that, okay, I've invested in XYZ and it didn't go well, I would like to sit out of this one. The moment you change or reposition yourself and you're able to actually showcase why you're different, it helps. So I think that is just universal, general stuff that we usually help with throughout the cohort. But I think for underrepresented founders and women, it's really important to showcase that you are thinking big enough. And it's okay to make mistakes and be a little unprepared or go into rooms that you feel unprepared for, but just enter anyway. So, yeah.
And I guess part of that too is seeing the success. So like you've had so many great successes through the accelerator.
Yeah.
Is there a couple you can just highlight for us as well? Just shout about their success.
Companies that we've invested in, absolutely. It's going to be so tough for me to choose one or two, but we've backed about 30 companies and there's an under 25 team that we've recently backed. They're working in the energy space. It's called Mine Electric. And they were also part of our 9th cohort. They are building in the long duration energy space for APAC. And they're the only players in APAC doing this at the moment with RNA batteries. So I think I personally love the entire space of deep tech. And 40% of our portfolio is deep tech. So I wanted to give a shout to Mine. I think another one that I could possibly share is it's a different one. It's a consumer brand called Nori, but it's a luggage brand. And Nori specifically has the thesis that luggage is really boring and it's not really built for women. And they've actually designed luggage for women and travel gear. So it's India's first travel gear brand that's building, luggage and bags and accessories for women. So that's one. And third would be one in healthcare. We've also we've just invested in Pinky Promise. It's a women's health company, and at less than $1, they're able to give you a prescription. So it's India's, or rather maybe the world's first AI clinic for women. So you just download the app and you're able to get a prescription in less than 5 minutes and under $1, which is really cool. So, yeah.
So every time I've met you, you've been to the UK at least 3 times the last few years, right?
This is my 3rd trip, yeah.
And obviously you've been building out relationships here.
Yes.
And this time around you came with the Indian delegation as well.
Yes.
And I'm trying to remember the first time I met you, obviously, everything was going really well, but then I can just see that growth you've had.
Yeah.
And now you're a big part of the advocacy for the entire market, right, as well?
Yes.
And how have you seen like the whole Indian market adapt and change in that 7 years? Because you've obviously been a part of it yourself, but you've seen the whole ecosystem grow.
Yeah, I think the ecosystem now, it's the best time to build in India, and it's the best time to start a fund in India. And we're already seeing that from 2019 to now 2026. Government support has increased a lot, obviously, with large amounts of capital being committed specifically for manufacturing, deep tech, all of these frontier technologies that the whole world is talking about. Second, I think we've also seen exits in India. India, I think, has roughly about more than 100 unicorns now, right? It's close to the UK, I think, in the number of unicorns. But yeah, India's actually seen growth in the space. So I think what's really helped is that we have now moved from copying Silicon Valley to building a lot of India-first innovations, which is actually being encouraged by the current government as well. And it's also creating a really interesting wedge for India-made for the world companies, which is blowing up right now in India. So, and this is within pharma, healthcare, it's within defense, it's within aerospace, all of these industries, and also, of course, AI, goes without saying. But I've only seen positive growth. And I think maybe it was a great time for us to start. COVID happened in 2020, which slowed things down. But post that, it's just been an upward curve in terms of number of funds that have opened up. So there's a lot of branching out that's happening, and the ecosystem is getting denser. But the one thing that I think has still not happened is enough growth capital. So we do have a little bit of limitation, I think similar to the UK, where
we complain about it all the time too. Yeah.
Where we have limited number of funds that could take it. So then the companies do still have to go out for capital outside India. But yeah, I think we've only seen good things happen in the ecosystem, and a lot more angel investors also participating in the asset class, obviously because of the ESOPs and the exits that have come into the community. So yeah.
So what's one thing you think the Indian ecosystem can learn from us, and what can we learn from the Indian ecosystem?
This is one thing I actually have to think about it. In India, we can learn about being extremely detailed and organized with a bunch of things. And I think that is the one that I can think of at the moment. And I think in UK, a lot of the ecosystem could learn to be more risk-taking. I think that not enough is happening in this ecosystem yet, where the potential is really big, because it's one of the largest access points for the world. Like, all of the ecosystems converge here, specifically also in London, right? And there's no dearth of capital. I think there is a little lack of risk appetite, which also, I guess, will now open up, and I'm seeing lots of I just also saw an announcement for Cosign, if I'm not wrong. It's also one of the sovereign LLMs that the UK is building. So I think it is growing, but it could grow faster, I feel.
And what are your plans for the future? So hopefully you're going to come back here again soon.
Yeah.
And what we're saying to people is that you come on every 200 episodes. So you'll be episode 325-ish. So episode 525.
Yeah.
So summer of 28. What would you love to come back on and see you've been able to do in those 2 years?
Two things. One, I would want to see a version of Rebalance across at least 2 more hubs within the world. That is one that is really something that I want to do. And the second thing would be to actually be able to gather capital for the fund, because I think now, if I want to increase the impact that I'm making and do it faster, I would need access to capital that is faster. Because at the end of the day, no amount of impact can be made without money, right? Philanthropy only begins with money and ends with that, right? So the important part is to understand that if you have access to the right kind of people and the right kind of capital, you can actually make much larger impact. So I think in 2 years, that's what I would probably want to see happen for Rebalance.
So let's dig into those London plans. Tell us what you're thinking.
I want to expand access to the Accelerator program for London. We do get applications from the UK. very interestingly, even though we don't market here. And I've done an event in 2024 in London as well, but that was focused on women and investing. And it was an experiment that we did. I usually run AMAs on angel investing for women who want to learn about investing in India. They're just coffee chats. You come and you can ask any questions around angel investing. I do the same for founders. So I'm maybe planning to do something like that before I leave on this trip to see how it works. But definitely the Accelerator program, and a lot of the folks that are looking at India as a market and building here is also a great area where we could possibly support founders in the UK.
And like with everything you do now, right? What do you enjoy the most? Like, what's the bit that makes you the happiest?
I think the one thing I love about what I do is I get to actually sit with some of the smartest people and ask questions. And I think it's a place of a lot of responsibility and also privilege, because you get to learn about so many industries that otherwise maybe I would have not. And I think it's so stimulating intellectually that I don't think I can do anything else ever again. So I think the idea of learning about, maybe 5 years ago or 6 years ago, I wouldn't know anything about super alloys. That's not my area of expertise, but having worked with and invested in a company that's building that gives you the access to learn. So I think what motivates me, if I put it that way, is just this, which is that I get to learn every single day. It sounds cheesy, but it is exactly why I love what I do.
Can you give us a fun fact about super alloys?
Fun
I know
facts
nothing.
about super alloys?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Super alloys go in literally everything from making, planes to, because titanium is a super alloy. And I think currently the super alloys that we use within our ecosystem will not be able to withstand the kind of heat and pressure that it requires to do frontier space tech, like how we've all saw the IPO for SpaceX. And he's been able to build reusable rockets, which is really, really an amazing feat. And for you to do that, what is the first thing you need to do right? It's materials, right? And super alloys are the one backbone of every single industry within the deep tech space that'll be important. So we wanted to participate in this particular company because they were focusing on what goes inside all of your deep tech hardware innovations that you want to do. So yeah.
So with our fund as well, right? So the fund that's potentially coming, hypothetically, you said you're going to do, so it's 40% is in deep tech right now, right?
Yes.
And when you're kind of, obviously, investing in deep tech versus investing in consumer versus investing in B2B, it's very different outcomes all the time, right? Because deep tech tends to take a longer time. And when you're trying to communicate to, say, potential LPs or the angel community, those differences, how have you been able to do that? Has it been a struggle, or has it just been nobody's really asked?
The investments that we've made in these deep tech companies were very organic. Because we're a sector agnostic investment community, we invest in fintech, healthcare, consumer, all of these as well. The founders were the real reason why we ended up taking those bets. And our thesis is literally just the founders. It's not any particular industry. So within deep tech, when you are also taking these deals to the investors or to LPs, the one thing that everybody wants to actually invest in our community is deep tech. So we got very lucky that way, where a lot of the angels had that risk appetite and were choosing deep tech over consumer, over SaaS. Because I think it's the excitement of participating in something that could have an outcome that could affect multiple industries that are traditional, and also be able to put India on the map for these kind of technologies. So I think a lot of that comes from there. So not a lot of convincing has to go in. I think what they really look for is the team. And if the teams are exceptional, they usually find. I think one thing that we think about when we're doing this is patient capital and good company is something that we like to go by when we are also looking at founders who are looking to raise capital. The idea is that you should be happy with who you're working with. So as an investor, if you do like the team, I think you'd support them in whatever they're doing. It does require a lot of patience, but if you are focused on the longer term outcome, which means you're comfortable with being patient with the companies, the outcomes have been great. So the second piece on how I would possibly tackle it, if there's an angel investor or an LP who is a bit doubtful or is maybe thinking that, oh, I'm not from this sector, I don't understand it, I don't want to invest in it. It has happened. We help them understand it from a portfolio build view. So if you have too much exposure in consumer or fintech or SaaS, it's good to diversify in different industries. So there are different ways to navigate that conversation. But our angels are like extremely risk-taking. And so that is the reason why 40% of the portfolio is deep tech. So I think we've just gotten very lucky with the kind of folks we brought in as well.
It's funny too, so with like SpaceX, right? Everyone's like, oh, we should just invest just in SpaceX.
Yeah.
But it's the whole kind of basics of like investing, right? So you want to diversify. And then by doing the Accelerator program and having so many different companies, you get that portfolio mix, right?
Yes.
And how many companies are now going for the end of this year or for next year? How many companies do you hope to support each year?
We support the 2 pipelines that we look at. Out of the 30 investments that we've made, 19 are out of the cohorts and the rest are all direct deal flow. So we invest in everybody. We don't only invest in women. The program's focused on female founders. So roughly annually, we do about at least 30 to 40 companies that we work with. And we're really mindful for not wanting to do more than that. The higher limit would maybe be 50, but that's where we would cap it because we feel that the quality of deal flow is more important than the number of companies we're working with. And each founder should feel like we were able to actually really help them with something. Otherwise, it's a very quick conversation and, people stay in touch and it never really works.
So just before we go to wrap up questions, let's say like next year, you've got a London-based program.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for anybody who wants to apply to that?
I think the one thing I would say for anybody looking at applying to Rebalance is there's no good time to be ready to apply to an accelerator program. So just write the application. I think that's what I would say, because sometimes we overthink this decision and there's no right time to ask for help or reach out for better access to folks that you don't know. So I think in startups, you have to be you have to be okay with being vulnerable because you will make mistakes and you would want to ask for help. So I think don't delay that. And accelerator programs can be great spaces for you to actually meet the right people and openly ask questions that you otherwise might not be able to ask in larger forums.
Okay, so wrap up question time now. So the first one is, who are 3 Asians in Britain that you think are doing amazing work and you want to shout them out?
I think one, you. I would, of course. I think it was really lovely to meet you 3 years ago and to learn about Bay HQ. So I think you're doing some really incredible work. Second, I think I would say Rupa, who runs Araya. I think I did connect with her again 2 years ago, and she's now running Araya as a fund where she's also investing, I think, partially in India. So I love the work that she's doing. I think the third one that I would possibly want to give a shout out to is Kamal Hoti. She is someone I recently met, and she's done some incredible work for Asians in the UK and specifically also for women.
Awesome. So thank you for shouting out me. Always nice to hear that. And then if people want to find out more about you, more about Rebalance, where should they go to?
If you want to learn more about Rebalance, go to www.therebalance.com. It has everything. Otherwise, you can always shout out on LinkedIn. I'm super active and I'd be able to respond in hopefully less than 2 days. Yeah.
And then for people listening today, not just in the room, but at home as well, how could they potentially help you? What are you looking for? Is there any way that the audience could help you?
I think what I would really love if folks that are listening to this or watching this at the moment, one, recommend amazing female founders to us. I think we have done a decent job at reaching out to women who are building incredible things. But if you know anyone that we should speak to, please recommend them. Second, I think definitely most important piece, which is women who invest. I think these are the 2 big areas where you could really support the community, because I think if these grow, then the impact also grows. So yeah, I think these are the 2 places where I would love to get some recommendations.
So thanks so much for flying from India just to see us and to come on this podcast. Have you got any final words?
Yeah, I think within the startup ecosystem, I think the one thing that really is really lovely is this kind of work where we're actually helping each other. I think ecosystems only grow when you're willing to help each other without thinking about what outcome do I get out of this or what am I getting out of this. I think the authenticity of helping each other is one thing that I love about being in the startup community and being able to actually support other folks and see their stories actually grow. So yeah, I love the work that you're also doing, and happy to support BHQ in any way that I can.